Hello, my dear friends. Tell me, where are you listening from? And what time is it where you are? Maybe it's late evening. Maybe the stars are already bright in your sky. Wherever you are, I invite you to settle down, make yourself comfortable, and let the day slowly fade away. Tonight, I will take you to a place full of wonder and colors, a place where magic lives in every corner and secrets whisper in the walls. This is Encanto, the enchanted land. It's a world where an extraordinary family lives inside a house that breathes, sings, and dreams with them. A world where gifts are given, mysteries unfold, and courage is found in the most unexpected hearts. So, let us drift together into this story. Hold on to your dreams and let Encanto carry you gently into sleep. Once upon a time, in a village hidden between mountains and rivers, there lived a young couple with 3 infants. Their life was simple, marked by laughter and small joys, until war came like a storm. Soldiers poured into the valley, steel flashing, torches burning, and the peaceful village dissolved into screams and smoke. The man took his wife and children and fled with the villagers. They crossed forests where branches clawed like skeletal hands and shadows whispered with hungry voices. Behind them, the sound of hooves drew nearer, merciless as thunder. The children cried, their wails sharp as broken glass, guiding the hunters closer. At the river's edge, the family was trapped. The water raged, foaming white, offering no safe passage. Enemies closed in, their faces lit by firelight, eyes glinting like wolves. In that moment, the man understood. Someone had to stay behind. He pressed a trembling kiss to his wife's forehead, whispered a farewell, and stepped forward to meet the advancing steel. His blood stained the stones. His cry split the night. The wife collapsed, clutching her children, her grief rising in a wail so piercing it seemed to shatter the air itself. From blood and sorrow, something unnatural was born. A candle appeared in her hands, burning with a flame that would not die. From the earth around them, stone and wood assembled themselves. Walls rose, beams locked, and a house emerged, trembling with life. Tiles rattled like teeth, stairs stretched like serpents, windows blinked like eyes. This house, the casita, was not a dwelling, but a creature built from sacrifice and grief, bound forever to the family. The villagers, awed and fearful, kept their distance. Yet the young widow stepped into the living home, holding her children close. The candle's light filled the house, warm yet haunted. And the family madrigal was reborn inside its breathing walls. But the magic was not finished. It promised more. When each child of the bloodline came of age, the casita would open a shining door, gifting them a room and a power beyond mortal reach. The villagers rejoiced, calling it a miracle. They brought offerings, they sang praises, and they bowed before the madrigals as if before saints. And yet, beneath the laughter, a question coiled like a snake in the dark. Was this miracle truly a blessing, or the beginning of a curse paid in blood? The candle's promise did not remain idle. As the children of the madrigal family grew, the casita revealed its will. On nights marked by music and celebration, the enchanted house would summon a door of golden light for the child of age. The door shimmered, waiting to be touched, and when small fingers pressed against the handle, the door would swing wide, revealing a room unlike any other, vast, strange, echoing with the echo of power. And in that moment, the child was forever changed. The villagers watched each ceremony with awe. They brought flowers and gifts, bowing to the children as if to royalty. A miracle, they whispered. But what appeared as a blessing to the world became a heavy burden within the hearts of those chosen. For every gift was also a chain, and every room within casita was a prison, gilded with expectation. The eldest, Isabella, bloomed with beauty and grace. With a single gesture, she summoned roses, lilies, orchids, all perfect, all flawless. Gardens bent to her command. Fields blossomed under her smile. The villagers worshipped her as a living saint. Yet in the dark corners of her room, Isabella trembled. For when she dared let her hand slip, when she longed for wild growth and crooked stems, the casita forced beauty upon her, strangling her freedom with petals too bright, too neat. She was adored, but never herself. The second, Louisa, was gifted the strength of stone. She lifted oxen, hauled bridges, and bore the weight of entire mountains. The people praised her as the unbreakable pillar of their world. Yet at night, when no one watched, her shoulders shook beneath invisible burdens. She feared collapse, feared the moment her strength might falter. For if she was not strong, who was she? Her gift chained her to endless labor, and her laughter was often swallowed by exhaustion. Camilo, the trickster, could shift his form into anyone he desired. To the villagers, he was a lightful, a living puppet show, the embodiment of mischief. Yet mirrors betrayed him. When he gazed into their silver surfaces, his face flickered from one borrowed form to another. never settling, never sure. The question clawed at his soul. If he could be everyone, did that mean he was no one at all? Dolores, with ears cursed to hear everything, carried secrets no child should bear. She heard the sighs of forbidden lovers, the whispers of betrayal, the hushed weeping of neighbors in the dark. The world roared inside her head, every sound sharp, every silence heavy. She smiled softly before others, but her nights were endless torment, for she could never escape the noise. And then there was Antonio, the youngest. He spoke with animals, and the beasts obeyed. Birds landed on his shoulders, jaguars purred at his feet. The villagers adored the innocence of it, but in the dead of night, Dolores swore she heard those beasts muttering in a language too old, too cruel, their eyes glinting with unnatural light. They were loyal to Antonio, yes, but also bound to something deeper, something darker. The villagers cheered each new gift, blind to the shadows. They saw miracles, but the family lived in silence, carrying chains too heavy for any child. And as the candle burned, as the casita pulsed with life, its walls whispered with a truth unspoken. Gifts are never free, and every miracle has a price. At last, the night came for the youngest daughter of the Madrigals, Mirabelle. The village gathered once more, their eyes glittering with hope and greed. They had seen roses bloom from thin air, mountains moved with bare hands, and animals bend their wild hearts. What new wonder would this child bring? What power would the candle grant? The casita stirred, walls shivering, tiles clattering like drums. A door of golden light shimmered into being, taller than the girl, glowing as if it held the sun itself inside. The villagers hushed, holding their breath. Mirabelle, small but eager, stepped forward. Her family watched, Abuela stern, her sisters radiant, her cousins shifting with excitement. All waited for the moment the child would become another miracle. She laid her hand upon the handle. For a heartbeat, the door flared with dazzling brilliance. Gasps echoed through the crowd. And then, just as swiftly, the light died. The door shuddered, turned dull and lifeless, and crumbled into plain wood. No room, no gift, nothing. The silence was heavier than stone. Mirabelle turned, her wide eyes pleading for comfort. Yet in every gaze she met, her sisters, her cousins, the villagers, there was pity, confusion, and beneath it all, fear. A miracle denied was no miracle at all. Abuela stepped forward, her hand falling on the child's shoulder, firm as iron. Her voice, cold and sharp, cut the night. "You are still a madrigal." But the words rang hollow, and the look in her eyes was not love, but disappointment veiled in duty. The celebration faltered. The music resumed, laughter forced, but Mirabelle felt herself pushed to the edge of the room, invisible among the revelers. The villagers whispered behind cupped hands. Why was she refused? Is the candle fading? Is this a curse? From that night forward, Mirabelle bore the weight of being ordinary in a family of marvels. Her sisters shone brighter. Her cousins delighted the village. Her grandmother praised each new display of magic. And Mirabelle? She embroidered her own skirts, swept the floor, and smiled a smile that did not reach her eyes. The casita, alive and watchful, seemed to pity her. Tiles scuttled into playful shapes, stairs bent to ease her steps, shutters swung open to comfort her with fresh air. The house itself reached to embrace her, as though it understood the loneliness carved into her heart. But the pity of walls could not erase the sting of rejection. The older she grew, the wider the distance stretched between her and the others. Isabella, perfect and adored, never stumbled. Louisa, strong and steady, bore every burden. Antonio, the baby, whispered to beasts and charmed the people. Mirabelle's hands were empty, her door forever closed. One evening, as music filled the halls and villagers feasted, Mirabelle caught sight of something no one else seemed to see. Along the tiles beneath her feet, a crack spread, black and jagged, crawling like a vein of rot. She gasped, pointing, calling out, "Look, the house is breaking!" But when others turned, the floor lay smooth and whole. The candle burned steadily on its stand, its flame unwavering. They shook their heads, dismissed her cries as jealousy, as longing turned to madness. But Mirabelle knew what she had seen. She knew what she had felt in her bones. And so it was that the child who had been denied became the only one who could see the truth. The miracle was dying. The days that followed were heavy with unease. To the family and the villagers, the casita still danced and laughed. Its tiles clicked in playful rhythms. Its shutters waved to children. Its stairs stretched and curled like serpents in a dream. The candle glowed steady on its altar, haloing the madrigals in reverence. But Mirabelle saw what others refused to see. She saw the cracks. At first, they were small, a thin line crawling along the tiles, a hairline fissure creeping up a wall. She would reach out with her hand, tracing the black veins, and the casita would tremble beneath her touch, groaning like an old man in pain. But when others entered, the cracks vanished, the walls healed, leaving Mirabel standing alone with her fear. She begged Abuela to listen. "The house is breaking," she whispered. "The candle is faltering." But Abuela's face grew colder with every plea. "The miracle endures," she declared. "It is you, Mirabel, who weakens it with doubt." Her words were sharp as needles, stitching guilt into Mirabel's heart. Her sisters, too, turned away. Isabella, draped in perfect blossoms, raised an eyebrow. "Perhaps you only wish you had a gift." Louisa, shoulders bent under unseen burdens, muttered, "We all have our tasks, Mirabel. Stop creating problems." Even Antonio, gentle and kind, looked at her with wide, uncertain eyes, afraid of believing her. But the casita could not lie. At night, when the house was silent, Mirabel heard the timbers groan, the stones shift, the whispers in the walls. Once, she woke to find her bed trembling, the ceiling above her splintering like ice on a frozen river. In the morning, there was no trace, yet the dread remained, coiling tighter around her chest. Then came the whispers. Not from the villagers, not from her family, but from the casita itself. When she pressed her ear to the walls, she heard voices low and indistinct, like secrets carried by the wind. Sometimes they murmured her name, sometimes they sobbed. And once, in the dead of night, she heard laughter. Laughter not joyous, but hollow, echoing like something trapped deep within the stones. The whispers led her down forgotten corridors, past doors long closed, into the bowels of the house where dust lay thick and shadows clung. There, behind broken tiles and crumbling mortar, she glimpsed a figure moving, thin, stooped, with hair like tangled ropes. She gasped, certain she had seen a ghost. But the casita creaked softly, as if urging her forward. It was then Mirabel remembered the name that had been banished from every tongue: Bruno. Her uncle, the seer, the one they did not speak of, the man erased from memory, sealed behind silence. The cracks spread further with each day. The villagers still sang, the family still smiled. But Mirabel felt the truth like a storm pressing against the horizon. The miracle was rotting from within. And if no one else dared to face it, she knew she must. So, with fear clawing at her heart and the whispers guiding her steps, Mirabelle resolved to seek the ghost in the walls, and with him, the truth buried in shadow. In every family, there are names spoken with pride and names that are never spoken at all. In the Madrigal home, one name lay buried in silence: Bruno. When Mirabelle was little, she had asked about him. The answers came in whispers, cut short, as if even the sound of the syllables might poison the air. "We don't talk about him," they said. "He brought nothing but misfortune." And so Bruno was swallowed by the walls, vanishing into rumor. But the cracks led Mirabelle closer to his absence. She followed the shifting groans of the casita, the shiver of tiles beneath her feet, the way doors creaked open without being touched. At last she found a hidden passage, narrow and damp, where rats scurried like shadows, and the smell of mold pressed heavy against her lungs. She lit a candle stub and pressed on. The corridor twisted, the ceiling low, the walls whispering. "Mirabelle, Mirabelle." Her name stretched and warped until it seemed to come from every direction. She clutched the candle tighter, and then she saw him. A gaunt figure crouched among the stones, his hair wild, his cloak torn, eyes gleaming in the half-light. Rats clustered around him, not as vermin, but as companions, sitting on his shoulders, curling at his feet. His face was haggard, haunted, yet unmistakable. This was Bruno, the uncle erased. For a heartbeat, Mirabelle froze, thinking she had found a ghost. But he blinked, swallowed, and spoke, his voice raw from disuse. "You shouldn't be here." "Are you my uncle?" she whispered. Bruno's lips twisted into something between a smile and a grimace. "That depends who's asking. If you tell them you saw me, they'll curse my name again. Best you turn back." But Mirabelle shook her head. "The casita is breaking. I've seen the cracks. The candle is fading. You know why, don't you?" Bruno's eyes darkened, and for a long moment he said nothing. Then, with a heavy sigh, he led her deeper into his hidden world. Narrow chambers carved behind the walls, filled with shards of green glass, fragments of visions. The air shimmered faintly, as though memory itself lingered there. He picked up one shard and held it to the candle. The glass glowed, and inside it danced images, broken, shifting, incomplete. Mirabelle saw the casita shatter, the candle sputter, her family scattered among ruins, and in the center of it all stood herself. "I saw this long ago," Bruno murmured, voice thick with sorrow. "They didn't want to hear it, said my visions cursed us, so I stayed here, between walls, between breaths, where no one could hate me anymore. His shoulders slumped, and the rats nuzzled against him like children to a father. Mirabelle's throat tightened. She saw not a monster, but a man condemned for speaking the truth. "If I'm in the vision," she said softly, "then I can fix it. Tell me what I must do." Bruno's eyes flickered with something fragile. Hope, or fear of hope. He handed her the shard. "The future is never certain, but if you would save the miracle, you must face what everyone else hides. You must uncover the cracks inside their hearts, not just in the walls." The casita groaned above them, dust falling like ash. The rats scattered, as if sensing the house itself was listening. Mirabelle clutched the shard of vision close, the green light burning against her chest. She understood then. The answers lay not in the candle, but in the family that worshipped it. When Mirabelle left Bruno's hidden refuge, the shard of emerald glass pressed cold against her palm. Its fractured light flickered like a heartbeat, a reminder that the future was already bleeding into the present. She walked through the halls of Casita, now eerily silent, and for the first time she looked at her family, not as miracles, but as prisoners locked inside their own gifts. She sought out Louisa first. Her sister's arms were strong as iron, her back unbending beneath burdens that would crush any other. Villagers praised her as unshakable, a pillar of their world. But when Mirabelle followed her to the edge of the field, she found Louisa trembling. Her hands, which once lifted stone and beast, shook violently as though cursed. Tears streaked down her face. "If I cannot be strong," she whispered, "then I am nothing." The gift that had crowned her had also chained her, and the weight she carried was more than stone. It was terror. Next, she found Isabella, the perfect flower. Her room was a palace of vines and blossoms, each bloom more exquisite than the last. To the village, she was flawless beauty, untouchable grace. Yet Mirabelle discovered her in secret, conjuring twisted plants, sharp with thorns, blooms dark as blood. Isabella stared at the grotesque creations with something like longing. "I want to grow wild," she confessed, "to be imperfect, to be free, but they only love me when I am beautiful." Her gift, too, was a gilded cage. Dolores, the listener, carried her curse in silence. She smiled at gatherings, nodded politely. But when Mirabelle caught her alone, her face was pale, her eyes haunted. "I cannot stop the voices," she said in a hoarse whisper. "Every sigh, every secret, every lie, they never stop." Her ears rang with truths too heavy for a child, and in her heart grew a loneliness deeper than silence. Camilo, the shapeshifter, laughed the loudest, always entertaining with borrowed faces, but Mirabelle saw him smash his mirror in fury, blood dripping from his fists as fragments showed the stolen faces of others. "I don't know who I am," he cried. "I only know who they want me to be." His gift left him faceless, a shadow of everyone but himself. Even Abuela, keeper of the candle, was not spared. Late one night, Mirabelle found her kneeling before the fading flame, clutching her rosary, her whispers trembling. "If the miracle dies, then so does our family. Without it, we are nothing." Her eyes burned with fear, not faith. The woman who preached strength was, in truth, bound by terror. Mirabelle stood among them, the shard of vision heavy in her hand. She saw it clearly. The cracks were not only in Casita's stones, but in the very souls of her family. Each gift had turned to curse, each blessing to burden. And if the candle was dying, it was because their hearts were already breaking. The house groaned as if in agreement, dust raining from the rafters. Mirabelle whispered into the dark, "The miracle is not the gift. It is us. And if we cannot face what lies within, all will fall to ruin." The shard glowed brighter now, as though it too waited for her to act. The day of ruin did not arrive quietly. It came dressed in celebration, cloaked in music and laughter. The villagers crowded into Casita's courtyard, their arms heavy with offerings, their voices raised in praise of the madrigals. Children danced, women sang, and men cheered for miracles. Abuela stood tall, her hands folded before the candle, as if to reassure herself it still burned with the strength of her husband's sacrifice. But Mirabelle saw what no one else could deny any longer. The cracks had spread too far. Black lines tore through the walls, zigzagging like veins of rot. Tiles shifted uneasily beneath the stomping feet of dancers. The flame of the candle flickered, thin as a dying breath. She shouted above the noise, "Stop! The house is breaking apart!" The music faltered. Laughter fell silent. All eyes turned to her, their faces painted with doubt, irritation, fear. Then Casita shuddered. A thunderous groan rose from its belly, and the ground itself seemed to split. Gasps and screams filled the air as a jagged crack split the floor in two, devouring tables, chairs, and garlands of flowers. The candle flared one last time, blinding in its brilliance. Then it sputtered. The flame shrank to a trembling spark and was swallowed by smoke. Darkness swept across the house. The casita wailed like a dying beast. Beams snapped, Walls toppled. Roof tiles rained down like shards of glass. Stairs twisted and fell, crushing the feast beneath them. The rooms of magic, Isabella's gardens, Luisa's stronghold, Antonio's jungle, dissolved into dust and rubble. Casita gave one final lurch, and with a sound like thunder cracking the earth, it collapsed into ruin. Yet even in its death, the house shielded those it loved. Doors swung open to push children out of danger. Tiles lifted like hands to carry elders to safety. A wall folded inward to cover Mirabelle as the roof crashed down. And then it was over. Silence. Smoke. Ash. The family stood together in the wreckage. The villagers stared, horrified, as the madrigals looked at their hands and realized the gifts were gone. Luisa strained to lift a beam, but it would not budge. Isabella summoned flowers, but only dirt remained. Dolores pressed her ear, hearing nothing but her own breath. Antonio called to the birds, but they did not come. Camilo's face stayed his own, no longer shifting. Abuela dropped to her knees before the cold, lifeless candle. She wept, her sobs ragged, her voice breaking into accusation. "This is your doing, Mirabelle. You doubted the miracle. You broke our home." Her words lashed like whips, and the villagers muttered in fearful agreement. Mirabelle staggered back, the weight of blame crushing her chest. Her family's eyes burned with grief and suspicion. Unable to bear it, she fled into the night, stumbling across shattered tiles and broken beams until she reached the river where her grandfather had fallen long ago. There, by the rushing water, she collapsed. Tears spilled freely, mingling with the river's foam. She thought of the vision, of the cracks, of Bruno's warnings. And then Abuela found her, eyes red with rage and despair. At the river's edge, they stood face to face, old grief colliding with new sorrow. Abuela's voice trembled as she confessed the truth. The miracle was born of sacrifice. I clung to it so tightly that I forgot why it existed. I demanded perfection, and in doing so, I shattered what I sought to protect. Mirabelle listened, her heart heavy yet clear. She took her grandmother's hand and whispered, "We are not miracles because of our gifts. We are miracles because we are together. Even broken, we are enough." And in the river's roar, a strange stillness settled. It was not the return of magic, but the first breath of something stronger, the promise of renewal. Morning came heavy with silence. Where once the casita stood alive and laughing, there now lay only rubble, broken beams shattered tiles, splinters of painted shutters. The villagers walked quietly among the ruins, their joy from the night before drowned by smoke and dust. For the first time, the madrigals were not revered as saints. They were simply people, weary, grief-stricken, and powerless. The family huddled together, their faces pale, their hands empty. Louisa pressed her palms to the earth, but no strength surged through her limbs. Isabella cupped the soil, whispering to it, but nothing bloomed. Dolores tilted her head, but heard only the sobs of children. Antonio called to the animals, but the forest remained still. Even Abuela, who once guarded the flame, now clutched the lifeless candle as if it were a corpse. Then Mirabel stepped forward. She had no gift to lose, no power to lament. Her voice trembled, yet it carried. The miracle was never the candle. It was never the gifts. It was us. The love we gave, the sacrifices we shared, the way we endured together. That is what made the magic. Her words cut through the despair like light through fog. Abuela lifted her gaze, seeing at last not the failure she had accused, but the truth in her granddaughter's eyes. Tears welled as she whispered, "I forgot. I was so afraid of losing the miracle that I lost sight of why it came to us at all." So, with hands blistered and clothes torn, the madrigals began to rebuild. The villagers joined them, not as followers, but as equals. Stones were lifted, beams were set, mud was mixed with sweat. Laughter returned, small and fragile at first, like a bird testing its wings. Louisa carried what she could, no longer invincible, but still strong. Isabella planted seeds that grew slowly, imperfectly, yet beautiful in their wildness. Camilo worked with his true face, telling stories to keep spirits high. Dolores sang soft songs that filled the air, and Antonio brought children to play among the rubble. Mirabel stitched curtains, painted shutters, set stones into place. Piece by piece, wall by wall, the casita rose again. But this time, it was not conjured in a blaze of miracle light. It was built with mortal hands, with love and unity. At last, only the front door remained. A plain wooden door, waiting. The family gathered. Mirabel, the child once denied, stepped forward. She placed her hand upon the handle. The door shimmered, not with the blinding gold of old, but with a warm, steady glow. The casita shuddered, then sighed like a creature waking from deep sleep. Tiles clattered in joy, shutters flung open. The roof shook off dust as if stretching after slumber. The house was alive again. The family gasped, but Mirabel only smiled. She understood. The magic had not returned because of the candle or because of gifts. It lived because their hearts had healed, because they accepted each other's flaws and burdens. They were not miracles because of powers. They were miracles because together they endured. And so the casita stood once more, not as a palace of marvels, but as a home built on love, on grief remembered, on unity restored. Its walls would whisper, its tiles would dance, but its true strength lay in the family it sheltered. For miracles born of blood and sorrow may falter, but miracles born of love endure forever. The casita stood tall again, its walls fresh with paint, its shutters bright with color. Laughter rang in its halls, the kind of laughter that once seemed lost. The villagers spoke of survival, of hope reborn. They told their children, "The madrigals have proven that love is stronger than ruin." But the nights were not so simple. When the last lanterns went dark and the courtyard lay silent, Mirabelle sometimes heard the house breathe too heavily, like a chest rising and falling with pain. The tiles under her feet twitched, not in play, but in unease, as though remembering the weight of collapse. And in the deepest hours, when even the roosters slept, she heard whispers seep from the stone, voices low and mournful, calling names long buried. One night, she awoke to see shadows moving across her walls. Though no candle burned, they formed shapes. A man's outline, tall and bent, hands raised as though in farewell. She knew it was her grandfather, the one who had fallen so long ago, the one whose blood had birthed the miracle. His voice did not speak, but the silence around him told her everything. The magic had come at a price, and debts never vanish. Her sisters, too, felt the remnants. Louisa confessed that when she lifted buckets of water, she sometimes swore the handles grew heavier by invisible hands, pressing her shoulders down. Isabella dreamed of flowers blooming black, thorned and sharp, creeping over her bed. Dolores covered her ears at night, for she heard the faint sound of weeping beneath the floorboards. Antonio shivered when animals stared too long, their eyes reflecting a green fire not of this world. Even Abuela, who had let go of her pride, woke trembling from dreams of the river. In them, she saw her husband's face, pale and dripping, lips mouthing words she could never hear. She prayed harder each dawn, as though prayer itself might stave off the reckoning she feared. The villagers, blind to these shadows, continued to praise the family. They brought offerings, feasted in the courtyard, told tales of miracles. But Mirabelle carried the truth like a stone in her chest. The casita lived because love had bound it, but also because sacrifice had sown it, and sacrifice, once made, leaves roots that twist deep and dark. On a cold evening, as the house settled around her, Mirabelle pressed her hand to the wall. "We know you live," she whispered. "We know what you were born from. If one day you ask again, we will answer." The wall trembled faintly, as though in reply. Thus the tale ends, not with eternal peace, but with a warning. Miracles that spring from blood may bloom into joy, but their roots remain thirsty. And though the casita laughed again, though the family held each other close, the night carried a truth none could silence. Every miracle hungers. Every miracle remembers. And every miracle, one day, demands its due. The tale of the madrigals is one of shadow and light, of gifts and burdens, of loss and renewal. What first appeared as blessing proved also a test. For power without understanding becomes a chain, and duty without love breeds despair. From Pedro's sacrifice sprang a flame, but from Alma's fear came chains of expectation. The family glittered in the eyes of the world, yet within they fractured. Only when ruin stripped them bare did truth emerge. The miracle was never the candle, nor the house, nor the powers. It was the bond between them, fragile yet enduring. Mirabelle, child without gift, became the mirror that revealed both flaw and strength. In her, we see that worth is not measured in power, but in love, courage, and truth. Through her, the family learned that perfection is a mask, strength must bend, and beauty must grow wild. The lesson is grave. Cling too tightly to fear, and even miracles crumble. But trust in compassion, and even ashes may bloom anew. Thus, the story warns and comforts alike. What we treasure most is not the light of magic, but the light we kindle within one another.